Okay, fine. In the last session, we have discussed about process root shape. Process root shape is the combination of process call and root shape. And here, uh, process root shape is helpful for us to create one main process, and within that one main process, we can create multiple sub process. And based on the routing parameter, we can route to the specific process. As I have told you just now, here process root shape is the combination of process call and root shape. So whenever we are using the process call shape, okay, we are able to establish the communication between one main process to the one sub process. Okay, we are able to establish the communication between one main process to the one sub process, and that too we need to create the sub process manually. But when it comes to the process root shape, within that main process, we can create multiple sub process, and based on the routing parameter, we can route to the specific process. Now I'm going to show you the practical. Process root shape. I'll save this one. New component, create. Here I'm going to choose start shape of new data, and then I'm going to click on OK. I'll name this as process root shape process root shape process. Okay. Now here I'm going to use the try-catch shape to handle the error handling. And here I'm going to take all errors. Then I'm going to click on OK. And in the try branch, here I'm going to take one message shape. And in the catch branch, I'm going to use the stop shape. Now I'm going to connect this to the stop share, and this is the try catch. Now here, whenever you want any sub process being executed, okay, so at that point of time, we are executing the main process, and from the main process onwards, we are redirecting to the sub process by choosing the start shape of data pass through the sub process here. Okay. Now here, I have taken the message shape. In the message shape, I'm going to write small piece of XML scripting, and where I'm going to take account object type here. Here I'm going to take one message type message, and here I'm going to take one object type object type, and here where object type equal to account, and I'm going to close that respect to object type. Okay. So here I have opened one object type, and I have taken as account, and I have closed that account object type. Now here, so with the help of this message shape, I am going to enhance this process further by using the process root shape. And as I have already told you that here process root shape is the combination of root shape and process call shape here. Process root shape. Okay, it is the combination of process call shape and root shape, and it keeps two processes decoupled to each other. Okay. Now I am going to click on this process root shape, and here you are going to see the process root and process grouping. And this process grouping is used in functional in the EDI module. Okay. Now we are going to deal with the process root shape. So this is the parent process which is going to read the data from the data source. Okay, that is nothing but from the message shape. Okay, this is the parent process which is going to read the data from the message shape, and then it want to do certain routing, and it is going to call certain sub process here. Okay, first here I will do the routing, and then I'm going to call the sub process here. Okay. Now here I have chosen process route, and here I'm going to do the routing, and here I'm going to select the route parameter. And here it is the actual parameter basis of which it is going to do the routing here. Now here I'm going to select the route parameter. Now here I'm going to choose the profile element. Why I'm choosing the profile element? What is the type of data I'm getting from the message shape? Message shape is going to send the data which is in the form of XML into the process route shape. So because of that reason, here I have chosen profile element, and then I'm going to choose profile type as XML here. Now here I'm going to create the profile. Here I am going to create the profile manually, and here in the place of element, here I am going to type object type. Okay, here I am going to select object type. Okay. Now I am going to save this one. save and close. Now here I am going to choose that respective object type here. So here I have added a root parameter on which basis I am going to do the complete routing here. Okay, I am going to select that respective object type. I am going to click on OK. Now I have configured this process root shape here. Okay, I have configured this process root shape by using this root parameter. Now I'll come back to the general mode. Once after coming to the general mode, here you are going to see the process root. Now I will see the process root component. Now I'm going to click on this plus button, and here I'm going to name this as router. I'll name this as router. Now here you are going to see the option pass through. This pass through decides whether the documents coming from the parent process will be passed through the child process or not. Okay. This pass through is going to decide whatever the data we are getting from the main process will be passed through the child process or not. Okay. For time being, I am not going to touch anything. Okay, as I have not configured any type of root parameters here. So in this situation, by default, it is going to execute the default branch here. Okay, I have not configured any routing parameter. So because of that reason, now this default branch is going to get executed. I'm going to save this one. Now I'll test the process. Once after testing here, I'll be able to see that the default branch is going to get executed. See here, why default branch is going to get executed? Why? Because whenever any document which is passed through the process root shape, and if it is not going to match any type of routing criteria, then it is going to execute the default branch here. So here I have not configured any type of conditions here. So because of that reason, now this process root shape is going to get executed to the default branch here. See here, in this situation, default branch is getting executed. I am going to click on this default branch. I'll click on this here source data. If I open this document viewer, here I'll be able to see the respective information, whatever I'm going to retrieve from the message here. Okay, this is the account object. Now I'm going to configure some root parameters, and then I'm going to enhance this process further. Now I'll click on this router. Okay. Now I'll go to the process routing, and here I'm going to create a multiple sub process here. So here I'm going to give the now here I'm going to give the name. Okay. Now here I'm going to mention the name. Okay. Now here I'm going to give the name as a account sub process. Account sub process. Otherwise, I'll give the name as account. Okay. Here also I'm going to give the required key as account. And here I am going to route to the process, and here I am going to create the respective sub process. Whenever you are going to route to the respective sub process, you need to use the start shape of data pass through, and then I am going to click on OK. And here I will name this as a account sub process. Okay, and then here I am going to use the stop shape. I'll save this one, save and close. And again here, I can create one more sub process. Okay, now here I'm going to create one more sub process. So like this, we can create multiple sub process here. Okay. Now here I'm going to create one more sub process contacts. Okay, here I'm going to use the root key as contacts. And now I'm going to click on this plus button. Then this will be redirected to the respective sub process. And here I'm going to select the start set of data possible. And then I'm going to click on OK. And here I'm going to use contacts sub process. And here I'm going to use the stop shape. Like this, we can create multiple sub process, and based on the routing parameter, it will be routing to the specific sub process here. I'll save this one, save and close, save and close. Now I'll save this one. Now I'm going to test this process. Now in this situation, as I have already configured the root parameter, so it will be returned to the respective specific subprocess. Now this will be routing to the respective account subprocess here. So because of that reason, the default branch is not getting executed. So here the default branch is not getting executed. Now I'm going to click on this router. I'll click on this source data. If I open this document viewer, here I'll be able to see the respective data account subprocess. Now, if I click on this arrow mark, then this will be routing to the respective subprocess. Now see here in this situation, within one main process, I am going to create multiple subprocess, and based on the routing parameter, I am able to route to the respective subprocess here. I am going to click on this top shape. I will click on the shape source data. If I open this document viewer, here I'll be able to see the respective account object. Okay. Now, now I am going to enhance this process further in such a way that I am redirecting from main process to the sub process. Okay. At the time of execution, I am going to click on the arrow mark, and the respective execution is going to happen to the respective sub process. Now in this situation, first I am going to execute the main process, and then I am going to execute the sub process, and based on that I am going to check. Instead of doing all these things, now I am going to enhance this process further in such a way that whatever the data I'm having in the main process, I am going to send the data to the respective subprocess. And if the subprocess execution is going to happen successfully, then that is going to return back. Okay, then that is going to return back with some meaningful information to the main process. Okay. Now I am going to configure this one in such a way that I am going to pass the data from main process to the sub process, and then I am going to retrieve some meaningful information from the sub process saying that whether that sub process execution executed successfully or not. Okay. So as part of that, I am going to enhance this process further. Now I'll come to the process routing. I have selected the account sub process. Now here I am going to take the tricat shape. Then here I am going to choose all errors, and then I am going to click on OK. Now in the catch branch and try branch here, I am going to pass two message shapes here. Here I am going to pass one message shape. The similar way, here also I am going to pass one more message shape. Now in this message shape, I am going to pass certain status code. So here I am going to pass status equal to successful execution. Means that once the data reaches from the main process to the sub process, if the sub process execution completed successfully, then it is going to return back the information saying that successful execution. Now here I am going to pass as status. I'll click on. Now in the similar way, this is the catch branch. Here I'm going to copy paste, and here I'm going to pass this as failed execution. Failed execution. I'll click on. Now I'm going to connect this message to here and this message to here. And see here, once the data reaches from main process to the sub process, and based on the execution of this sub process, it is going to generate some message. If it is executing successfully, this try branch is going to get executed, and then it is going to generate the message as successful execution. If the sub process execution fails, then the catch branch is going to get executed, and it is going to generate some message as failed execution. Now ultimately here I am going to use the return document shape. I am going to use the return document shape. So I am going to use first return document shape for the successful execution, and the second return document shape for the failed execution. Success, and here I am going to use for failure. Now I am going to connect here. Now in this situation, first main process is going to get executed, and based on the routing parameter, it is going to send the data to the subprocess. And if the subprocess execution is completed successfully, then based on the status code, it is going to return back the information saying that successful execution. And if the execution fails, it is going to send the failure execution. In order to return back something to the main process here, I need to have the return path map. Okay, I need to have the return path mapping. See here, once the subprocess execution completed successfully, that respective subprocess has to return back something to the main process. As part of that here, I need to do some return path. So here no return paths are defined. So in order to define the return paths, I'll come back to the general mode, and here you need to add the return paths. So here in the return path here, I'm going to pass true path, and here I'm going to pass the false path. Okay, I'll save this one. I'll save this one, and I'll come back to the process routing. So here I'm able to say the return paths as true path and false path. So for time being, I'm going to save this one, save and close. Now here you will be able to see two paths. One is false path and another is true path. These are the paths which I have configured just now. Now I'll come back to the router. Now I'll come back to the process routing, and I'll click on accounts. Okay, so here I'm able to see the return paths. So if I click on here, here you will be able to see the success path. So the success path is going to map to the true branch, and this failure path is mapping to the false branch. I'm going to save this one, save and close. Now here, for the true path, I am going to use the stop shape, and for false path, I am going to use the stop shape. Now here, once after execution, this router is going to send the data from main process to the subprocess. And once the subprocess execution completes successfully, the return document shape, whatever I have configured in the subprocess, that is going to send the data back to the main process with the help of this return path mapping. In the return path mapping, I have configured true path with the success and false path with the failure. So based on that execution, it is going to send the data back to the main process. Now I am going to test the process. Now execution completed successfully. Now if I click on the stop share, if I click on the shape source data, if I open this document viewer, here I'll be able to see the successful execution. See, instead of executing the main process and redirecting to the sub-process and all these things, directly with the help of this root share, this process root share, I am able to send the data from main process to the sub-process. And once the sub-process execution completes successfully, based on the return document shape and return path mapping, whatever I have configured, it is going to return back the information saying that successful execution. This is the status code which I have passed in the subprocess in the message here. If the subprocess execution completed successfully, then we are going to get the message saying that successful execution. If it is the execution fails, then we are going to get the failed execution. At that point of time, we are going to get the false branch is going to get executed.